Raphael is the founder and host of Heroes Rising. He's hungry, driven, and bright. He's used his skills to develop a variety of multifaceted businesses in the martial arts and fitness industry. He's also a business and mental game coach and host of the Coaching Call podcast. Heroes Rising is proud to introduce you to our exceptional co-host, E.A. Solkovitz. EA created, designed, invented, formulated, and reformulated over 75 products in the health and wellness industry. He is the founder of Givers University, providing increased happiness, freedom, and greatness through personal, business, social, and family development. He is also a licensed commercial pilot.
Wow. Look at me. I'm here with these amazing people. Everybody, welcome to Heroes Rising. Thank you so much for joining us. Do us a favor. If we have questions, just put them in the chat. We'd love to answer your questions. Let me introduce you to everybody. My co-host, amazing person, E.A. Solkowitz. And then we're joined by two other incredible people. Here we have Dr. Kelsey and Zach. One of the things that we want to bring to you guys is something that you can, take notes on, and something that you can hopefully take forth after today. So let me introduce you first. Dr. Kelsey, wow. I don't even know where to start, right? She's a naturopathic doctor who has made it her mission to change the narrative of healthcare. Think about it, right? She's going to help change the way we think of healthcare. She has maintained a private practice since 2015 and now manages the Denver you still manage that, right? The Denver Naturopathic, yes, the clinic in South Denver. They've had patients over 30 years. She's also focusing her support on professionals to enhance their energy, focus, productivity. She works alongside CEOs, athletes, entrepreneurs, celebrities, and other highly dedicated patients to investigate their health and to a deeper level. When she's not seeing patients, Dr. Kelsey lectures an integrative healthcare program at MSU Denver, serves as the vice president of Colorado. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be here for hours talking about how amazing you are. Dr. Kelsey, thank you so much for being here with us. Would you mind just sharing what you are bringing to our world, how you're making this different, how you're helping everyone see healthcare way better than we actually see it?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on, first of all. It's very fun to be here. I certainly appreciate the invite. So as Raphael said, I am a naturopathic doctor. I'm a business owner. I'm a coach and a mentor to other doctors. I'm an educator. I'm a speaker, and I'm a business consultant. And what I have learned in the time that I have been doing all of those things is that it's probably no mystery to a lot of people that there's something broken in our healthcare system, and we are living in a disease care model and not a healthcare model. People have been saying that for a long time, but I think more and more people are actually waking up to that and wondering how we can break out of that. And so what I've been learning and doing with my patients and doing with the people that I coach and mentor is really trying to change that script and change the paradigm, not just for patients and how they should be viewing their health and how they should be viewing healthcare and investing in themselves, but also in how doctors should be valuing their time and valuing their time spent with patients. And in doing that, what I find is that there's actually a much better outcome, not just for patients, but also for the providers. So that's kind of been my mission, is to change this view so that people aren't just going to the doctor when they're sick and looking for a quick handout or a quick fix so that they can go back to living a lifestyle that probably got them there in the first place. And instead really start changing the mindset piece so that people feel really empowered and invested in their health, and doctors feel really empowered and excited to help them and aren't suffering burnout as much anymore.
Wow. I have a question for you. So all of us are wondering, how do we help our health? How do we get fit? How do we take care of our not only outside body but our inside, which is probably where you truly come in, right? That's where you shine.
Yeah.
How do we start? What's the first step that we can take?
I think the first step is just being curious.
Mm,
I think so many people have kind of lived in this state of, I kind of describe it, it's almost like you're like sitting back and watching life kind of pass by, and you're going through the motions and you're hanging on, and things happen and you just go through them. And again, it's like there's this pattern that people are, it's almost like they're sleepwalking through life sometimes. And I think health has certainly been that way, because that has been the paradigm of health in our culture. Of, there's kind of been this model that the doctor is more of like a patriarchal figure, and kind of, they tell you the rules and they tell you what to do and they give you the pill, and then you don't really have responsibility in that. And I don't think that's the case anymore. So I think being curious about what's possible for your body, and your body is not just your physical body. It's obviously your spiritual body, your mental, emotional body, your social and occupational body, like all of these different pieces that come together, and realize that you are all of these pieces, and that you are an individual and you are unique, and that you actually have an amazing capacity for change. And so I think curiosity is where it starts. And then from there, it's forming a team around you. Human beings were not really designed to live or work in solitary confinement. And so I think people do best with a team around them. And so that includes maybe having a coach. Maybe that includes having a healthcare provider or a number of healthcare providers, depending on what you're looking for. It can include having a fitness coach. It can include having a nutritionist. Whatever those pieces are that you need help with, you're more likely to succeed if you have a team around you who can all communicate on the same level on your behalf of that. And so I play a big role in that for a lot of my patients, as kind of like the point person to help them start building out that team.
If I have a quick comment, if I may. I became a believer in naturopaths for the following event that happened in my life.
Okay.
30 years ago, right after the dinosaurs were still here, I somehow pinched a nerve in my neck. And I felt when it happened, it was so weird. It was just, and I just remember I went everywhere. I went to a medical doctor, couldn't help. Went to a chiropractor, couldn't help. I mean, multiple times. And it just, the nerve, whatever this little nerve was, it just in my neck, it just got pinched just enough. And so someone said, well, you should go to this thing called a naturopath. And I said, what the heck is that? And I said, is it a natural path as opposed to an unnatural path? And what's a naturopath? And it said what it was. And I said, okay, well, I'll give it a try, because no one's getting at that nerve. And I will tell you, this lady worked on me for a good solid hour. And she said the following, because I was laying there and she had just worked on my neck and shoulder and all around it. She said, now I got to tell you two things. Number one, I know I nailed it. I know you're going to be okay. I said, number two, she said, tomorrow you will feel like a semi rolled over you. She said, you're not going to want to move. You're going to feel like you're going to want to move. Your body isn't going to want to move. She said, but the next day you are going to be golden. And I swear to you, Dr. Kelsey, that's exactly what happened. The next morning I woke up and I said, okay, time to get up. And nothing moved. And I said, get up, and nothing moved. I was still laying there. And then, and then that day I just felt like, oh my God, a semi had not rolled over me, but then backed over me. And then the next day I felt like I had this energy surge and the nerve was, perfectly nailed. And I became a true believer because of that one event. So I totally love what you do. And the fact that you specialize in, how to teach people not to get things as opposed to just taking care of them once they have it, being, instead of reactionary, more proactive, if you will. And I just think that's marvelous. And we need a whole lot more of that today, because it's way too easy for people to pop out these pills the way they're doing it left and right. So I just want to mention, Dr. Kelsey, I'm a huge advocate for what you do.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I think it's funny that you said, like, when somebody mentioned it to you, you're like, what the heck is that? And that's pretty much always the response I get when I tell people what I do for a living. Most people have not heard of naturopathic medicine. So there's kind of, for me, like I am a doctor and I see patients and I love doing patient care, but there's also kind of been this bigger piece for me of how do we get more naturopathic care to more people, right? Or at least the people who want it. Because what I found is a lot of people want it, they just don't know exists. So that's kind of where this like other piece of my world is coming in terms of coaching and consulting and really trying to change like the way that healthcare looks. So many people are used to going to a medical office and they check in and then they sit there for 20 minutes and then they go back and then maybe they get 10 or 15 minutes with a provider. They barely get to tell their story. They barely feel heard. And then they walk out with maybe a prescription and maybe just like kind of lose weight and eat better. And like the thing is, most people don't know how to do that or what that means and aren't really given the support that they need. And doctors don't like that model either. Any medical doctor that I talk to, they don't like that model. They want to spend more time with their patients. They want to be able to provide more individualized care. And the model we live in, which unfortunately is the insurance model, doesn't really support that. And so I'm really trying to help people realize that there is a different way to practice and there's a different way to provide care that is a lot more gratifying as a provider, that actually serves the purpose we all went to medical school for, but also actually has a lot better patient outcomes because of it. So that's like my big thing right now, is to bring more people that result that you had. And that starts by helping other doctors, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's really amazing when you think about it. Let me ask you a question, and I've had some people ask me the same thing, and for me, I know the answer, but how important is it when you go to the doctor to actually, especially if you don't know them, to interview them, to
So
actually,
important.
yeah,
So
so
important.
to actually talk to them. And because some doctors will come in 2 minutes later, they're gone. You're like, what happened? It was a whirlwind, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, holy cow. So how important, besides you saying how important is it, but should you bring like pen and paper? Should you record it? Because there is so much information that, even when you go get your car tested, they're going to give you a printout at the end.
Right.
And sometimes you can't obviously read some doctors writing,
Yeah.
but yeah, nowadays they're computerizing everything, which is good. And we can have our record. But how important is it for you to understand the type of treatment you're going to be getting?
Oh, so I think these are so important. So first of all, I think, it's very important for patients to interview potential doctors and not just take the one that's assigned to them through their insurance carrier. I think, there's a lot of ways now in the current age that we're in that you can go online and you can find a lot of information about doctors. You can find their websites if they have one. You can certainly find them on health grades. You can find reviews on doctors. And I can't speak as much to the conventional medical world. I know some doctors are doing this, but especially in my industry, almost all of my colleagues, including myself, actually require a free 15-minute discovery call with myself or with one of the doctors before you ever even book, because we want to make sure that if you're coming in and you're spending the money and you're going to spend the time, that it is the right place for you to be. We want to make sure it's a good fit. And quite frankly, there's kind of an interview going both directions. I want to make sure that my patients feel confident in what I have to bring to the table, and that they feel comfortable with who I am and my personality and my approach. But I also want to make sure that they're ready for what I'm going to be bringing them, and making sure that they're really ready to engage, because otherwise it is a waste of their time and their money, and it's a waste of my time and my energy. So I think it's very important to have that interview. Once that is done and you feel really confident to take that next step, my appointments with my patients are very long. They're quite a bit longer than 15 minutes. My initial visit is an hour and a half with all of my patients. And then follow-ups are usually about 45, so it's a lot of information. It's a lot of getting to know each other. It's a lot of like building the framework before we even start going. And it's going in a lot of detail about their labs and about the recommendations I'm making, because I think it is so important to leave the office really understanding why it is I'm recommending what I'm recommending and why you should care about doing those things. And I also want to make sure there's time for the patient to say, yeah, no, that's not going to work for me. Because then I can make adjustments, right? I think it needs to be a dynamic relationship so that when the patient leaves, they feel really empowered. They feel very educated. They feel like they understand what it is that they want to do and why that matters to them and what the outcome is going to be and how long it's going to take to get there. So I think it's so important to have the time. I think it's important to feel heard. I think it's important. I have no problem if people want to record our conversations. People usually come in and take notes, but I always send them notes afterwards that explain everything we talked about in the treatment protocol. And that goes on for every single appointment that I have with my patients.
I have a quick question for you.
Go for it. Yep.
You really raised the point because it happened with me personally. And I know that I think you're delivering a valuable service, an amazing service. And obviously I'm a true believer because of what I said, but I think there's so many people just confused on what a naturopath is. Is there, and I might be asking you for something that's not even possible here, but if you can do it, it'd be great. Could you identify for the listeners as close to in one or two sentences, how is naturopathy different from other medical services of a kind or healthcare services? How would you distinguish that to help people get their head around, should I talk to a naturopath and what is it? So that, they at least, because there's so many people, I think that just like you just said, they don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I can definitely do that for you.
Right.
I think the biggest difference between naturopathic doctors and conventional providers, so you're like MDs, DOs, all that, is the philosophy. So in conventional medicine, the focus is on the disease process or pathology and how do you interrupt that, right? If you think about any medication out there, it's an antibacterial, an antihypertensive, it's all anti-disease, right? The difference is that the philosophy for a naturopathic doctor is more about physiology or normal function and how do you support the normal function of the body so that it can just do what it's innately designed to do. That's the biggest difference, I would say. And that doesn't mean that they're opposing foes, they can definitely work together, but that's the biggest key difference.
And I think we've seen over the years so much change. I mean, I remember back in the 80s having a medical doctor and a chiropractor in the same room, and I thought they were going to come to blows because, and yet now today, I know medical doctors that have become chiropractors and chiropractors that have become medical doctors because, when someone's having a heart attack, there's not a whole lot you can do to their back to help them right then. But also there's things you can do, with lining the back and all that. And forgive me for singing to the choir here, but for our listeners, that, the prevention goes a whole long distance in a way. And people don't realize the cumulative effect of health. They're just thinking about today or tomorrow or what did I eat last night? And they don't realize there's a huge cumulative effect over days and weeks and months and years that all of a sudden shows up and they say, I got this. No, you've been getting that for the last 20 years, right. Because of what you've been doing. So
right. Health starts now. And we don't live in that world. We're like, well, I'm fine now. And we don't do something until there's a crisis. And so what I do is trying to help people realize that health starts now. Awesome. And you may be well, but let's keep you well.
Yeah.
Love it.
Amazing stuff. Let me ask you a question because after listening to you, Dr. Kelsey, I think everybody across the country is going to want to come to you because they're like, holy cow, she's actually going to take time to find out who I am, the kind of help that I can use. So how do my listeners or our listeners get in touch with you? And where are you located? Because people are going to be knocking down on your door. So just be ready for Monday morning or even tomorrow morning.
In Denver, Colorado. Okay. There, with a medical license, there is some, my license is only in so many states. And so if patients are out of state and they want to see me, typically my out-of-state patients will fly into Colorado for their first visit of the year. And so we do it in person, we initiate their care in person, and then the rest of the year can be virtual. And then they're just kind of required to check in with me in state once a year. So that's just like a typical medical license sort of thing. But I am in Denver. I did put some information in the chat that you guys can share. So you can find information about me and my clinic at denvernaturopathic.com. That's hard for people to spell. So it's like nature without the E-O pathic, denvernaturopathic.com. And you can also email if you want to just inquire about setting up that free 15-minute discovery call, just to front desk at denvernaturopathic.com.
Nice, nice. So one of the things that, I want everybody to understand is that when we do look for our healthcare, we actually have to ask the questions because it's us, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the mechanic, you don't just go, yeah, I'll see you later. But some people do that. But you want to be able to drive a car that doesn't have wobbly wheels either.
Right.
So thank you so much. Such great information. And we can't wait to have you on the Coaching Call podcast because we're going to really dive deep. So everybody listening, make sure you check that one out. That's coming up soon. What I'd love to do right now is go ahead and introduce you, to my co-host, my exceptional co-host, E.A. Solkowitz. He is not your cut-of-the-mill coach or mentor. He has had room of 50 presidents of companies pay him $5,000 each, 50 of them. He did that for 3 days, 3-day weekends, sometimes 2. But guess what? $250,000 a shot. He did that for 2 years. I did the math. I wanted to know. That's $6 million. And he only works 72 hours. Wow. Listen, if you want to earn $1 million or more, who to better help you? EA has done it. You want somebody who has done it, who is in the know. He is the person who also developed the profits for scoring companies based on what his mentor taught him and what he learned from interviewing over 1,000 millionaires. That's right. You heard me. 1,000 millionaires. He is also a commercial pilot, and he can see things that most of us only dream of. So, EA, I need a ride. So go ahead and book your free mentoring session with EA. I think we're going to put it in the chat, but let me tell you, I am just thrilled that he is my co-host. EA, I know you're going to talk about community, and how important is that? Take it away, my friend. You got to unmute, EA.
I was listening. Thank you for those kind words. And I was listening to all those things you were saying, and I say, well, you know what? It's still not as long as my last name, so I better get to work because. and see, Dr. Kelsey, she was able to say how to do naturopathy, how to spell it out. I'm not able to do that with my last name. I can't do like the first part. It doesn't. There's no way. But that's okay. Until I was 12, I thought my name was Go Chop Wood. So what's the difference? But thank you so much, Raphael, for all those kind words. And I look forward to being able to share with everyone. And those things he said about me, really, I can share genuinely. They're all because of my meeting an amazing man who became my mentor at an early age. And I became such a huge advocate for mentor because he was a millionaire. And, if you, just like Raphael said, someone who has not earned $1 million probably cannot teach you how to be a millionaire. And my mentor had many times over, as a matter of fact. And so all the things that Raphael said about me and those blessings I had in life, the business owners that I taught, all I was doing was just sharing things that were taught to me by my mentor. So if you don't have a mentor, first I say to everyone listening, if you don't have a mentor, in my world, we have a word for that. We call it naive. That's the word. And that you need to have a mentor, someone that can bring you under their wing. And a mentor is more than a coach. Coaches are great. We need those. They can teach us talents and skills. We need those. That's great. But a mentor is a much more personal relationship, much more, confident, if you will. And I was so blessed to have Sam Robbins as my mentor and the things he taught me that are still endless. And I literally have notebooks and banker's boxes filled with notes of things that he shared with me over the years. And I'm so glad. So thank you for those kind words. And one of the things he taught with me was, be selective as to who you have around us. And I was doing a recent interview on a podcast, and the guy says, man, I really love this givers and taker stuff and what you're learning, teaching about discerning. And I just read this book, and this book said I should have 5 good people around me. And I said, you should. You're right. One question, though. Which 5? And all of a sudden he's staring back at me with this blank look. And I said, you see my point? No one's teaching us which 5. I'm a self-improvement geek. I know all of our speakers today. I know Zachary and Dr. Kelsey and Raphael, certainly all self-improvement geeks, I guess you could say. And that's great. But no one's teaching us, what about if the other guy's doing it wrong? What should I do about that? And it's so easy for us to pull those people into our lives, and they make us collateral damage because we haven't learned how to discern who we should have in our life and who we should not have. So first, we're going to go through some quick slides together for just to sort of talk a little bit about the 7 steps of building a giver's community. But I want to mention that this is the single thing we teach at Givers University is one word: discernment. I say to our listeners, we love everybody. I say it again, we love everybody. But we teach a skill of how to separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we may not love, and to make decisions and be discerning on their deeds. So we don't judge people. We say giver, we're identifying giver deeds. We even have checklists, 25 long. These are the things you should be looking for. Watch what they do. Don't listen to what they're saying. So we teach a skill. It's discernment in one word. And that's what we're going to touch on a little bit when building giver communities. We have communities out there today. Many of our listeners probably have had this happen. It's happened to me. And that is, someone puts out an invitation and says, join our community. Be a part of us. We're all the same mind. We live the same way. And you join this community, and then within 6 hours, they're trying to sell you everything under the sun. Right? That's not a giver community. That's a taker community, also known as a customer hit list. That's what it is, right? So why are you doing a bait and switch and calling it a community when in fact, really, it's just a customer list? If I'm interested, tell me, this is my customer list. If you like our products, we'll educate you about them. If not, no problem. But don't do a bait and switch, call it a community when it's not. It's a prospect list. That's what it is. Call it what it is. So we teach people how not only to discern the difference between givers and taker communities, but also how to build the giver community. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich did a masterful job of talking about what a mastermind was. It was, and when he was teaching that in the 50s, it was certainly very novel. But one thing he doesn't do is teach you how to do it. How do you build one? He was identifying at that point so early what it is. And so what we decided to do was actually put together a way, which I'm going to share with everyone, the 7 steps of how to build a giver community. And it's real simple, real straightforward. And by the way, all of this is available. If you go to our YouTube channel, just go to YouTube and type in Givers University, all one word, Givers University. And you will find a whole playlist that's called How to Build a Giver Community. It consists of 25 actual 2-minute clips. And this, what you're looking at here, is the first one. So if you look for this icon in this thumbnail, you're on the right place. And there's 2-minute clips, step by step, over 25. This is how you form a community around you of the right kind of people doing the right things, not judging the people, but based on their deeds. And then not only that, here's the agenda. When you're having your meetings, here's the things you should do. Here's what you should say. Here's what you should cover and why. So it literally is step by step how to form a giver community, or as we call them, a junto. And a junto basically is whenever a group of people get together for a common purpose or a common intention, that's called a junto. So this is slide number 1. And basically, how do we determine and how do we decide what a giver community is, right? So next slide. First thing is D. Quick way on the 7 steps is to think about the word discern, because I'm going to go through an acronym that consists of those 7 letters, which also consists of how to build a giver community. So the first letter in discern is D. Well, what do you have to do? D stands for decide. You have to decide, who do you want to have in your mastermind group? Who do you want to have around you? How do you decide which people? That's what we cover. Step number, the next slide is I, the next letter in the word discern, is invite, right? You got to invite them. What do you say? How do you invite people to your mastermind group or your giver community or your junto? We teach you how to do that. The next letter is S, seed. This is really important. I've seen, and I'm sure many of our listeners have too, where a group of people have gotten together in a mastermind kind of situation. And then within 2 or 3 months, it just sort of dissipates. It falls apart. It just sort of disassembles. And I've always been curious, why does that happen? They get together for a good reason. Why does it fall apart? Why is it disassembling? The seed, this part in particular, is critical. To have expectational agreements that everyone agrees on up front, that we all hold ourselves accountable to as a part of the group. And we actually give examples in template form in this clip on our YouTube channel, this one in particular, of what are those things? What should you be watching for? What are those expectational agreements that everyone should agree on up front before they're accepted as a part of your mastermind group? Slide number 5, that is to convene, the letter C in discern. Meet on a regular basis. Set up a regular time and a regular basis. Convene. The next one is give your junto a name. You know, Henry Ford had a junto. He called it the Four Vagabonds, consisted of Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, John Burroughs, and Harvey Firestone. Also, there was a gentleman by the name of Benjamin Franklin had a junto, consisted of him and his 12 friends, and he originally called it the Self-Improvement Club, and then later on he called it a junto, and then later on he called it the Leather Apron Club. All right, so give your junto a name. When you give it a name, you're giving it an identity. So when we talk about, in this instance, giving our organization a name, the letter E means establish it. Establish it with a name. Number 7, rotate chairperson. All right, R in discern is for rotate. Every meeting have a different person. Shouldn't be the same person chairing the meeting. Slide number 8 is to make sure that as you add to your juntos, N in discern stands for numbers. Begin to seed other juntos, seed other communities, not so that you can take from them, but so that you can help other people, so that you can help other leaders and invest in them. And you can see all of this at our website, which is giversuniversity.com. And it's all readily available. And I think that what's really important is that we have the opportunity and a way for people to be able to literally build a great community around themselves. So thank you for letting me share those slides, Raphael. And as we get into the rest of our people here that we're going to have, we have just some absolutely fantastic speakers. Dr. Kelsey, awesome. Next gentleman, Zachary Green, awesome. Every one of us has.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. So how important is it for someone who wants to be a leader to create a community? Someone who wants to impact other people. How important is that?
Critical. And the reason it's critical is because these people around us, business, family, social, have an impact on us in profound, even unspoken and unvisual ways. Do you remember when you were a kid and whenever two people said something, you were two kids and you said something at the exact same moment and one said, hey, you owe me a Coke. Remember that? I don't know. We used to do that when I was a kid from living in Chicago, right? You said, owe me a Coke. And that meant we both said the same thing at the same time. How many times have you actually, and people had that happen in their life where all of a sudden you find yourself sort of picking up another person's mannerisms, maybe some of the things they say, their phraseology, voice intonality. I mean, all those things, when you add them together, these people around us have a profound impact on us in ways we don't know. And one of the biggest mistakes people make in their success is they have the wrong people around them because no one's taught them how to discern. They make broad, innocuous statements such as, be careful who you're with and make sure you're with the right people. But no one says at a very granular level, how do I do that? How do I discern? What are the things I should be looking for in a checklist form? Watch them doing this deed. Watch them doing this deed. Watch them doing this deed. And this will help you discern, should I pull them in closer? Or should I begin to respectfully, not rude or nasty, respectfully begin to distance myself? Because I don't want to be collateral damage and they're going to come in my life and I'm going to be stomping out fires, not of my making. So since I usually don't say anything in 10 minutes, if I can say it in 20 minutes, I give you a one-word answer, critical. It's critical. Enjoy that one-word answer.
Very critical.
It usually doesn't happen.
Make it two. Very critical.
Very critical. That's awesome. Thank you for asking that. And if I may, I'd like to introduce our next amazing speaker, Zachary Green. First of all, he's got an amazing background, and that is he helps people do something very unusual. But I have great appreciation for our service members. And I think we don't give our service members the accolades and the appreciation when they put it on the line for us. And Zachary Green, also, he was a U.S. Marine, and thank you for your service, Zachary. And also, certainly, his experience as a firefighter and starting a business literally in the trunk of a car and building it into a multi-million-dollar business. You have to be special and know some things to do that, right? That doesn't happen by accident. As my mentor taught me, one of the best math equations ever, one of the best math equations was coincidence plus coincidence equals no coincidence. So, and certainly Zachary is one of those men. I mean, he teaches people how to develop that warrior inside. Have you ever had that thing where you felt like you have this fire inside you, but you're not really, you don't know where to point it, or how do and you may have some adversities. How do I use those adversities and leverage them? How do I build on those adversities? How do I change them from failures to temporary defeats in my mind and reframe them and then build on them with the seeds of success we need? That's what Zachary teaches people. So listen close, take notes. And again, Zachary, thank you for your service. It's so greatly appreciated from my heart to yours and to your family. Thank you for your service. And please share with us, my friend.
Great. Well, EA, thank you so much. I really appreciate that introduction. And I absolutely love the coincidence plus coincidence equals no coincidence. That's pretty much been the story of my life. The other thing is Dr. Kelsey, thank you so much for what you do. I really wish I would have met you 5 years ago, because I almost died as a result of me not connecting my mind, my body, and my spirit. The stress that came about with my entrepreneurial journey was more difficult than anything I experienced in the Marine Corps infantry or as a firefighter. And it's something that we owe it to both our veterans and our current active duty right now is to look at the connection between those three, because they are absolutely interconnected. My story kind of starts back as a young kid. I suffered from very significant ADHD. I actually went to 6 different schools from kindergarten through high school. Montessori school, private school, public school, Catholic schools, you name it. It's interesting because when you get out of school, ADHD changes names and it becomes multitasking. And then all of a sudden they say, oh, he's a great energetic multitasker. He can do 5 things at once, and can control a room and tell a great story, but not always the best traits when you're supposed to sit at your desk. I always knew that I wanted to serve our country in the military. Pretty much knew early on I wanted to join the Marines. And what was interesting is when I got down to Parris Island, arguably one of the most difficult places on planet Earth, and I was there in the summertime. Up until that point, my parents had pretty much done everything for me. One of the reasons I went to 6 different schools is my parents were incredible. They would say, well, this one needs to go to this school, or maybe we need this type of system or whatever else. And it was so crazy. At my senior year of high school, my mom was literally laying my clothes out on the foot of my bed. So I didn't even have to get dressed. Well, all of a sudden I end up here at Parris Island, and within a week or two, I'm failing miserably. The kids next to me that grew up in the projects of Philadelphia that literally ducked gunfire on the way to school. The kid that grew up in West Virginia that had a dirt floor in his house where he lived in. The kid from New Orleans that was so poor he didn't know if he was going to get dinner. They excelled at Parris Island at that incredible difficulty recruit training. They were like, hey, this is great. I get 3 meals a day. I got a nice, comfortable rack to sleep in. This is great. I'm failing. And what I learned at that point was this concept of the warrior mentality. And a warrior is someone that's engaged in struggle and conflict. A warrior doesn't necessarily mean you're a Navy SEAL or you're an ancient Spartan. The warrior could be that single mom that's working 2 jobs just to try to make ends meet. She's struggling. She's having a lot of conflict. The warrior could be that kid that's the first one that ever in his family goes to college and has to work 2 jobs to just pay the bills. That's the warrior, because they're using struggle and conflict to grow from that. So my time in the Marine Corps comes to an end. I get out in 1999. A couple of years later, September 11th happens. I feel a lot of survivor's guilt that I left and my brothers and sisters are now taking the fight to the enemy. And so what I did was I joined our local volunteer fire department. Now, at that point in time, I had a great career in the pharmaceutical industry. My wife's a doctor, and one of the other reasons I'm so fascinated by the work that Dr. Kelsey's doing is there is no question there's a place for pharmaceuticals, but it's not the answer for everything. A lot of times pharmaceuticals come in where they're going to fix a specific issue, but they usually cause other issues. Looking at the body as a holistic way and trying to avoid those problems before they happen, is they always say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But the one thing I learned in the pharma industry is this concept of value selling and solving a problem. We don't tell you that this insulin pen has these chemicals in it or these different types of, DNA chains. What we talk about is here's the problem of diabetes. And if you take this brand, you'll get better. And we do that through showing maybe a grandfather playing with their kids, representing that, hey, if you have this problem of diabetes, insulin's going to help you. And here's the end result. So in that light, I become a firefighter. And I know what you're saying. How the hell is anything to do with pharmaceutical have to do with firefighting? Give me a second. I'll connect the dots here for you. I got lost in a fire early on. Horrifying experience. You have such reduced accountability, increased disorientation. You got 80 pounds of gear on. You're breathing through a respirator, so you can't breathe as well as you usually do. And as I'm crawling down this hallway, and by the way, we crawl because if you walk in a fire and maybe the floor is burned out in front of you and you walk, you'll fall into it. But if you crawl, you can feel with your hands that maybe there's a problem with the integrity of the flooring or whatever else. In a hallway, you always assume that the end of the hallway is a stairwell or a door. Well, I get to the end of the hallway and all of a sudden I realize there's nothing but 3 walls and I'm trapped inside of a closet. And I got 20 minutes of air left. And you take one breath of that black smoke, it's instant cardiac arrest and death. So I finally center myself. I calm down. I find my way back out of the building. Thank goodness. I talk to my captain and he starts making fun of me. And he's like, look, that is what happens every time you go into a fire. And that got me thinking, okay, there's a pretty big problem here. And this problem's gone probably back to caveman time. What's the solution? I put my pharmaceutical marketing hat on. And I remember that when I was in the Marine Corps, there were these little glow-in-the-dark tabs on the back of our helmets that helped us see each other in the dark. I started researching that technology. I found out there was a couple of rare earth elements that were used in this. I got look, I'm a dumb Marine and a dumb firefighter, but I know smart people and I know how to talk to smart people to help solve some of those problems. And one of them was, how do I take these microscopic rare earth elements and put them into carriers like silicone or different types of resins so they can glow? And I found a way to not just make them glow, but these things glowed for like 1 or 2 days. And they were so bright within the first 10 minutes, it was like a flashlight. And I started putting products on my helmets, like bands around my helmets. I had tools for my axes and everything else, and literally started selling it out of the trunk of my car. I would go up to a fire station and say, hey, my name's Zach. I'm a firefighter from Cincinnati. Can we go in the bathroom and turn the lights off together? And if they didn't beat me up, they usually are like, okay, this stuff's pretty cool. And then we could turn the lights off, see the glow in the dark, and talk about accountability and reducing disorientation. I made $5,000 in 6 months. Ended up going to a trade show. At the trade show, I had a soccer tent with sidewalls held together with zip ties and duct tape. I mean, it was as ghetto as you could get at. Next to us is Honeywell and all these billion-dollar companies with their $100,000 booths. But I had a line so long going outside of my booth to see that dark tent and how the glow material worked that the guys from the Honeywell booths came over at the end of the show to thank me because our line actually spilled into their booth. I booked $100,000 of sales in 3 days. I had a problem though. I had no money to buy the raw materials. I had no way to produce it at that type of volume. I had no way to distribute it. I had no way to collect the sales and everything else. But I'm a Marine and I'm a warrior. And the constant thing within a warrior is mission accomplishment over everything else. You have to accomplish the mission. And what I did was I refinanced my home. I maxed out my credit cards. I ended up rating my 401k. Eventually, we refinanced our home. And over time, I turned it into about a $30 million company. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is along the way, I almost died multiple times of unbelievable stress. My body I wasn't taking care of my body, weight gain, drinking too much, eating too much, traveling 150 nights a year for 5 consecutive years on the road. It's very difficult to exercise and eat well when you're doing that. And it came to a head when I got a call from my CFO telling me that we were 3 days away from bankruptcy and total liquidation. Not only was I going to lose my identity and my business, but I was also going to lose my house. And my wife, that was the doctor making all the money, by the way, she quit her job a couple of years earlier than that because she wanted to support me and the growth of the company. And we couldn't do that with her being on call and me traveling. So we had nothing. And I had a panic attack. It literally felt like a heart attack. My chest was exploding. I could feel the electrical currents running down my arm. All the stuff they trained us as a firefighter that if you find this, they go to the hospital. And what that was is my body's way of telling me, hey, this is too much. And what I learned at that point in time is the warrior's journey starts with resistance and struggle, getting you ready for that big fight. That big fight becomes what's called your crucible. And the crucible is that emergency, that crisis in your life, that whatever you've done up to that point in time is not enough to solve that problem, to get through that issue. Now, your crucible could be a dysfunctional relationship, personally, professionally. It could be a drug or alcohol problem. It could be a health problem. In my case, it was the failure of your business. At the bottom of that crucible lies the abyss. And the abyss is where darkness lies, where failure lies, where ultimately suicide lies. And the great philosopher Nietzsche once said, if you stare long enough into the abyss, eventually the abyss will stare back and consume you. And my abyss was the failure of my business. I didn't want to take that much time being worried about it and obsessed by it, but I had to recognize that I was in a bad place. Just the same as if you're walking along a sidewalk and there's a big semi truck coming by, it'll kill you before you even know you're dead if you stepped in front of the truck. But don't do that. Respect it and honor that it's dangerous, but keep walking on the sidewalk. But to get through your crucible, at the bottom of the crucible is that abyss, and at the top, you have to conquer what got you there. It could be through some of the holistic medicine approaches that Dr. Kelsey's talked about. It could be through mentorship like EA talked about. And you have to make that transformation and change. And once you do that, that's when you become the warrior. And that's when you become unbreakable. My first crucible was at Paris Island, going through what I went through there. Once I made it through that crucible and shed my former civilian ways and became a Marine warrior, that put me on a trajectory. My next crucible was the potential failure of my business. And what the warrior journey and my books and my training courses and my coaching and all the stuff that comes around that is how we can take adversity and honor it and grow from it. Because if you were in a bad relationship and you feel sorry for yourself and everything else, that's not a warrior. What you do is when you're in that bad relationship, you say, you know what? I respect that happened and I don't want to go there again. And the next person I meet is going to be different. That bad relationship helped you. And that's really the philosophy of the warrior mission and the warrior journey, with a little bit of understanding of how I got there and how I was able to use that.
I think that's some great information. Thank you, Zach, for sharing that. And again, thank you for your service. I never can thank service people too many times, in my opinion. And I greatly appreciate that. And what an interesting story. It rang in my mind because of one of the things, again, my mentor said was, shy away from people who haven't failed. He said, because if they haven't failed, start to distance yourself because they're next. And if everything's been perfect in their life, they've been saving up and it's probably going to be a whopper. You may want to distance yourself a little bit. And yet we have learned, and Zach, I appreciate that. It is true that wisdom comes from those things we have to build upon. You can get education in a book, but not wisdom. Wisdom comes from knowing what to do and when to do it. And that happens from those events that we have to build on. Thank you for sharing such great information, Zach. Just awesome, awesome, awesome. And if I may, I'd like to introduce our next fantastic, amazing, and the founder of Heroes Rising. That's the amazing Sifu Raphael. Now, I want to say, I think this morning was 161 days. I mean, how many people do you know post their workout for 161 mornings in a row? And he's still going strong. And he does these great workouts that are, 3, 4, 5, 3 to minutes. And I don't think he's had any past 9. I think he keeps him at 10, under 10 minutes, but pretty much from 3 to 9 minutes, does a workout, shows you how to do things with or without. And, that's one of the things that a leader does, is they don't just say, do it because I know how to do it. And I read it in a book. And I can share with you, I've met thousands of educated idiots in my life. And that have all the book knowledge, but no how-to knowledge. They don't, they just have the information, but they've never done it. So they really don't know, and Raphael's one of those, I can show you how to do it because I've done it. Come with me. I can show you how to do it. Do this, move your body that way, do it this way. And here's why. And that's what makes him such a superb, superior martial arts instructor. But also when it comes to the kind of mindset, he's demonstrating as a leader does. To become a great leader, first you have to be great. And that means you need to do it yourself. And one of the things Raphael does is he teaches people how to be present, how to be in the now, how to think properly and keep their mind focused. And he proves it every single day. He shows with consistency, persistence, all the things. And it's one thing to talk about these things. It's like even the word goals today sometimes is even seen as trite. It's, I got to have a goal. But if we really examined it and lived with it and realized the importance of it and realized it's a part of our life, it's not trite too long. And Raphael's one of those men that leads by example. He is a great leader because every day he's not only great, he's becoming greater. So Raphael, could you share with everyone, please? And thank you for reaching out to me as so I could be co-host with you. And could you share with our listeners about being present now, right now?
You mean like right now?
As in right now.
I think we should do that. One of the things about being present, and a lot of people do this, they daydream. So where are you, right? So think about the things that we do every single day, right? So today is the perfect time. Now is the perfect time. Listen, change comes from believing. Effort is required, for you to move forward. You have to move forward. You can't just stay there. I mean, you could, a lot of people do. But why is the cemetery full of dead dreams? Yes, a lot of dead bodies, but mostly dead dreams, because there is so much that died with all these people who did not do the things they were supposed to do. You must create your tomorrows today. Now, start today. Take a piece of paper and write down what you need to do, but do it today, because your habits will bear fruit. Now, do you want rotten fruit or do you want fresh fruit? You have to ask yourself that questions. So once you start moving, continue to move. You need that start. Sometimes you need a kick in the butt. If you need that, come down. I'm happy to help. So invest in your time to grow every single day, every day. You have the power to remake your life. Start from scratch. Don't worry about your yesterdays. Let's think about my todays. Think about your tomorrows. You have the desire to change if you want it. A lot of people, you know what they have? Fear. That's what they have, fear. So with fear, we don't go anywhere, right? Focus on one thing at a time. Don't try to accomplish 50 different things. You can't. We can do one thing at a time, but we can do it well. But we need to do that to be successful. When it's time to step up to the plate, right? You're there, you're ready to bat. You can't be thinking about, your laundry or what you left in the oven or your dinner later. You have one thing to think about, and it's that ball coming, and you better hit it, right? Or you're going to strike out. Or even if you do your best, you may strike out. But listen, Babe Ruth, how many times did he strike out, right? He was like the king of strikeouts, but also he was the king of home runs because he did not give up on himself. And this is what a lot of people do. You give up on yourself. So get in the game. Don't let life pass you by, or you just wasting your time. We all have a purpose. What's your purpose? Maybe you don't know yet. Maybe you think you know. How many times does someone change careers? Dr. Kelsey knew what she wanted, but guess what? She also has evolved. Zach has changed from being my hero, and like EA said, anyone who has served is a hero. You protected my right to be able to come to you today, to be able to be here. You protected all our rights. So thank you to you, Zachary, and all the veterans and anyone who has ever stepped on the front line to give us a chance. So what are you willing to do? What are you willing to set your goals to? I believe in YOLO. You only live once. YOLO. YOLO. Make that part of your daily routine. You only live once, so make it amazing. Listen, here's the thing, and I know Dr. Kelsey will agree with me. When you're at your dinner table, and she and I, we had lunch when we were at a conference, and we made that decision. We kind of asked, because we were looking at a menu, how is this food going to, once I ingest it, what's it going to do to my body? We actually had a conversation on that. So ask your food, how will you treat me once I take you in, right? You need to be present. Don't just eat, like grab something and just stuff your face without realizing the consequences of our actions. Your habits will create your tomorrows. So let me ask you a question. Are you ready to answer the call? And the call is, are you ready to be great today? It's easy to lose your way. Temptation is always knocking every day, every day. Do what's right. Do what you were meant to do in this world. I am blessed. My actions have brought this event together, has brought these amazing people into my life. I am super blessed to know them all. Zachary, I just recently met, and man, I felt a really quick connection because he cares. He's like, how can I help? And when we think that way, we can make our life worth living. What are you doing today? What are you going to do today? I really want to thank you all, by the way, for being here. So thank you, guys. I could have done this over here where it was just me. I could have done this. Take a look. It could have just been me, right? But it's not about me. What's it about? It's about us. Together, we can change the world. Who's in? Guys, unmute. Tell me you're in. You're in. Let's change this world. Unmute, unmute, unmute. So tell me if you're here to make a difference.
Of course.
Yes, you are. And you are. By the way, congratulations. Would you tell us what's going on with you in a quick minute?
In a quick minute?
Not a New York minute. That's a long minute, right?
What do you want me to share?
Your new opportunity that you have coming up.
Well, I have a few different things coming up. So I'm actually consulting with a few businesses out of the country who are trying to bring some wellness clinics into the States.
Nice.
So I am consulting with them, and we're going to be leading up part of their team to basically build out their medical team there, which will be really exciting. So that's one big thing.
Nice.
I think that's the thing you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's going to change what we were talking about before, the way healthcare is done. And, a lot of doctors don't think that food actually is part of your healthcare. They think the medicine, the medications, that's part of, no, and I know you and I both agree that that is not. So thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you, Dr. Kelsey.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Gentlemen,
who wouldn't
young
want
lady.
to have who wouldn't want to have Zach there, because he's the kind of guy that walks into a room and he's just glowing.
Yeah.
For sure. And,
yeah, but now in the dark he glows.
yes, that's the point. That's the point.
That's right. You can see the glow in the dark firefighter over my shoulder there, which is how the product works.
Zach, I have an idea. I mean, if you start doing some braces, those are going to be hot in nightclubs. Just saying. What do you think, Dr. Kelsey? So listen, everybody, thank you so much for being here today. I cannot thank all of my guests today so much for being here, and my co-host, amazing, exceptional individual. Any last words, everybody?
Yes. I'll wait till everyone else.
Go for it.
All right.
Zach, what do you got?
Zach? Yeah.
I love the quote from the famous General Hannibal of the Punic Wars, where he said, "Ad invium ad fascium," I believe. My Latin's not good, but basically he said, "I will find a way or I will make a way." And it was when he decided he was going to invade Rome by taking a horde of war elephants through the Swiss Alps and attack them from an area that they would never think of. And I think that is the ultimate spirit of the warrior, is you either find a way or you make a way, and you accomplish that mission no matter what happens.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I would just like to, first of all, Zachary, I loved your story so much. So thank you so much for sharing that, and for your service and for what you've done to, I've treated a number of firefighters and I know what that life is like. And so I really wanted to say thank you to you, especially for
appreciate that.
Yeah. And I kind of, I think what you talked about today was just so on point for me, because I feel like every person has a warrior inside of them, just like I believe every person has a physician inside of them. And I think that's the same person. And I think sometimes we just need to get out of our own way and believe that within yourself, you have everything that you need. It's already there. Like, you're completely capable to heal. You're completely capable to survive that next crucible. And just believe in that and start doing that today.
Nice. So EA, I know that you're going to talk to us about our next event.
Well, we have our next event coming up on the 24th. And of course, myself and the amazing Rafael Gomez will be there with our guests. Do you have the names of the guests, Rafael, by chance?
I do, but they escaped me.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, at the 24th,
they're in that escape plan.
The 24th at 12 o'clock Eastern, we'll have, we like to refer to as a lunch and learn, because we like to keep this at 1 hour. And there's so many other things people do during lunch, and there's nothing wrong with putting your feet up on the desk and learning and feeding your mind and your body at the exact same time. So, and I'd like to conclude, if I can, with one of my favorite poems as we close off our event here. And I love it so much. I memorized it over the years, and it goes as follows. I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged that evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is a just employer. It'll give you what you ask. But once you've set the wages, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn, dismayed, that any wage I would have asked of life, life would have willingly paid. God bless everyone. Have a great day. Your best day ever.
Absolutely. So let me, one of the things I'm actually going to throw it on here for everybody to see. We have two amazing guests, and I apologize. I thought I had sent you that information.
Nope.
EA. So our two amazing guests are, Ronald Rake and Roy Ossing, and they're going to be on fire, just like everyone who comes on our show is, right? So I want to thank everybody for being here. Amazing stuff, amazing content. If you want, follow my speakers, follow my guests, and by all means, move today. Move. And EA, what is it that you love to tell everybody?
Don't just have a good day. Have your best day ever.
Thank you, everybody.